All right, well, thanks. Happy to be here. I'm Matt Garratt. I'm the Vice President of Salesforce Ventures. And so we are an investor in Zeniq. It's the strategic investment arm for Salesforce. So we spend a lot of time looking across the sales, marketing technology landscape. And so just wanted to provide a little bit of our perspective of how we've thought about the market. We obviously spend a lot of time looking at sales marketing across CRM solutions. And obviously, one of the things that we've seen is just this huge proliferation of tools in sales and in marketing. And so, on the one hand, that's great because now if you're an individual contributor, you can go online with a credit card. You could get a tool that would do great lead scoring, or an email automation productivity tool, which was great, particularly when you're first starting out. But then certainly what we saw, and one of the things that we were always looking at was it wasn't clear how these things would scale over time, because often there's maybe sometimes a little differentiation. You're bumping into other tools as the spend starts to get higher. If you're spending a significant amount, there's a different sort of assessment that goes into when you're buying those tools. And so what we saw happening was a lot of what Srihari was talking about. Was that you started to see this proliferation of tools, this proliferation of all these data sets, and really none of them were talking to each other very effectively. And so there was, this was a very sub-optimized experience for sure. And what we've really been looking for, and the way we've thought about this space in general, is how do you get an orchestration where you get, I would say generally speaking, how do you get a lot of these enterprise applications working where you get workflows that connect one to the other, and you have a unified view of the customer and a unified data set. And so when we look at a lot of our investment themes and our investment strategies, they hinge upon this. And so, in many cases, this is why we have not really invested heavily in as many of the sales and marketing tools as you might think. And this is what was actually very interesting to us about Zeniq, was that, whereas I think the challenge we also saw with a lot of the other solutions was that essentially they were wanting to become a system of record or your main workflow. And at a certain point, that just creates another dashboard, it creates another tool to go in there that ultimately starts to bump into Salesforce or your marketing automation or whatever. And that, just creates kind of this just another workspace you have to work in. It's not a very seamless, smooth workflow. And what we thought was very interesting and compelling when we did invest in Zeniq was they sort of flipped that whole paradigm. They said, look, use the tools that you're using today, and use the data sets that you're using today. We can aggregate that and we can flow that into whatever tools you're using today. And in many instances you're doing account-based marketing, to use that term, unwittingly. It's taking who you should be reaching out to at what time and putting in the tool that you're using. And so I just use that more as a reference point. That's just really how we think about where a lot of enterprise software is going, generally speaking, but particularly when we think about the power couple and we think about account-based marketing, this concept of orchestration is very powerful and very relevant. So.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause here. His perspective, I've